We have now had a full NFL season with the 2023 rookie class. So today we figured we would bring you guys a redraft. We already did our rookie drafts this May, this June, whenever you guys had your rookie drafts. But today, with all of the information that we've had from their rookie seasons, we are going to redraft the 2023 class. How high does Puka Nacua go? How low does Bryce Young go? There's going to be a lot of things that we answer in this video, some good conversations, and some like rookie review, quote unquote, here with this class. So I'm fired up for this. I'm sure you guys will get a lot of value from this as well. Danny, what's up? How you doing?
Doing well, doing well. And yeah, like you kind of mentioned, this is shaping up to be one of the better rookie drafts that we've seen. I mean, we're going 20 plus names deep of guys that are going to be valued within the top 110, top 115 of your rookie or of your startup drafts. Like, it's pretty remarkable. Right now, when I'm looking at my rankings, I have 20 guys listed inside of my top 100 startup rankings.
Yeah, it's crazy too, because we were very much of the belief like, once you get to the early second, the class sucks. It's gross. There's probably going to be some contributors that pop up, but nobody that's going to be like huge values. And we've been pretty wrong about that so far. So I'm excited to get into this. We are going to waste no more time. Let's hit the intro. Alrighty, so if you skipped the intro, what we're doing here is we are redrafting the 2023 rookie class with the rule format here. You guys can see it at the top of the screen. This is going to be a Superflex draft. It's going to be PPR, and it's going to be half point to tight end premium. So we're going to have the tight ends go a little bit higher than if you guys were in a standard like non-tight end premium league. Danny, I'll let you kick us off with the 101. Who is your highest rated rookie from the 2023 NFL class and rookie class that was definitely not the 101 heading into rookie drafts in May and June this year?
Yeah, absolutely was not our 101. In fact, the ranking that I have for him overall in my Superflex rankings, I believe was about his ADP going into rookie drafts last year. This guy was going at the 104, the 105. People kind of downplayed the upside that he had. People kind of downplayed the situation, didn't really see him as a ceiling raiser, but CJ Stroud answered all the calls that he could have in his rookie season. Like, we're looking at a Justin Herbert caliber, Dak Prescott caliber rookie season. The franchise is in his hands. He's got two really young, solid wide receivers on the outside there. We're going to name one of them later in this video. But the thing that with CJ Stroud that really stood out to me is the biggest question in his prospect profile was the out of structure play that he showed in Georgia. Can he sustain it in the NFL? Can he show it on a game-to-game basis? Was that a one-time flash against Georgia, or was it more so, Ryan Day and the Ohio State offense kind of holding him in until that game? And we saw it in spades this year when asked to create out a structure. CJ Stroud had the arm talent. CJ Stroud had the mobility. CJ Stroud is just an ultimate playmaker on top of the fact that he's one of the most cerebral quarterbacks already in the NFL, and he's not even 23 years old. So I do think at this spot, 101 quarterback value, I think he's got to be viewed in the tier 2 of quarterbacks. You assume Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, and Josh Allen are at the top. I think you have to say CJ Stroud's right behind them.
Yeah, and I've seen people talk about discourse on Twitter and be like, hey, would you take CJ Stroud if you were a rebuilder over Patrick Mahomes, who's 28 years old? I wouldn't personally, because quarterbacks have such a long shelf life. But the fact that that conversation is even happening in the first place just shows that how good of an asset CJ Stroud has become. And like you said, the biggest lesson from like a scouting perspective that I can learn about CJ Stroud is if you see him do it once, they can do it multiple times. And that is basically reference to the Georgia game that you just brought up, where, we saw him work out a structure more. We saw him move his feet and, run the ball a little bit, make plays on the move. And we knew he could do that reasonably, but we didn't actually see evidence of it until that game. And the Texans and their coaching staff has clearly built around that skill set and built around what CJ Stroud can do. So yeah, absolutely no arguments from me with the 101 being CJ Stroud. I'm glad to have gotten a lot of shares of him, because I just happened to have a lot of 104s and a lot of 105s, and a lot of people were ready to bury this dude. A lot of people were taking him 106, 107, potentially even lower, because they wanted the upside, quote unquote, of like Quentin Johnston on the Chargers, or, whatever they were taking over CJ Stroud, who got a bad landing spot. But we've seen good quarterback kind of transcends bad landing spot. So I am going to go with another quarterback with my next pick here, and that would be Anthony Richardson. Now, unfortunately, Bryce Young was the guy that I was taking over both of these dudes, because I thought he was the better prospect. So we are going to take that one on the chin. I still believe in Bryce Young. I still think he's a good prospect and he's shown some flashes. but it's undoubted that he went to the worst landing spot of these three quarterbacks. And it's shown up in his rookie season. And that's another lesson that I want to take forward is, if we get a bad rookie season of these prospects, maybe you want to avoid them in rookie drafts, buy them low later, and not, overinvest in Bryce Young. Because similar to CJ Stroud, I did get a lot of shares of him. But with Anthony Richardson, we saw the rushing ability. We saw the out of structure plays. We saw him, look competent as a passer. I would say he still has a lot of work to do. But the reason I believe in Anthony Richardson, the reason I feel comfortable in Anthony Richardson is similar to CJ Stroud. I really believe in his coaching staff. I really believe in Shane Steichen's ability to develop Anthony Richardson. We're seeing the inverse effect with what Shane Steichen has done leaving Philadelphia and what it's done for Jalen Hurts and what it's done for the rest of the offense. So with Anthony Richardson, he's got Michael Pittman Jr. Josh Downs has shown a lot. They could probably continue to add wide receiver talent. Alec Pierce is a fine number 3, I suppose, and they have Jonathan Taylor and a good offensive line and a good coach. If you're going to develop a raw prospect, it's in an environment like this. So with Anthony Richardson, I have him ranked right now as my 10th overall player. So I would take him in the first round of a startup in Superflex leagues, especially in 4-point per passing touchdown, because this is a threat to rush for 10 plus touchdowns in a season, in addition to what he can do with his arm.
Yeah, for reference, CJ Stroud is ranked as my 5th overall player, Anthony Richardson as my 11. And with Anthony Richardson, from a fantasy asset perspective and even from a real life perspective, obviously he's got to improve as a passer long term to be viewed up there with the Jalen Hurtses, with the Patrick Mahomes, with the Josh Allens, entering that top tier of dynasty quarterback. But with Anthony Richardson, you're able to see the fantasy upside on display in year 1. He was averaging in the 3 games that he was healthy, nearly 24 fantasy points per game. He rushed in 4 touchdowns. We saw, that big athletic monster that we were touted out of Florida really on display in that Shane Steichen system now, with Jonathan Taylor potentially healthy, Michael Pittman still on the roster, offensive line very much improved. 2 years ago, it was a complete mess. Last year really improved under the guidance of Shane Steichen in that scheme. I'm really excited about Anthony Richardson, and this is still a guy that is only 21 years old.
Yeah, absolutely. So what direction are you going with the 103? Are you going to go with wide receiver 1 from this class? Are you going to go with the RB1 from this class? Are you going to go with another quarterback? What direction are you thinking with the 103 here?
Yeah, so the 103 here is the guy that we were taking and the whole industry was taking at the 101. Bijan Robinson of the Atlanta Falcons. And you can make the argument, I do have these next 2 guys really back-to-back between him and another player at his position, which I'm sure you're going to take with the next pick. But with Bijan Robinson, I still believe in the talent. Now, obviously, not the year that we could have possibly wanted there. Arthur Smith, meddling in at times, not really getting the full workload we could have expected. I believe he finished with 281 opportunities in the 16 games he played. This is a guy that's built to handle 350, 370 opportunities per season. We did see Arthur Smith meddling, but don't worry about that. Arthur Smith is almost assuredly going to be gone going into next season. You're going to expect better quarterback play, assuming that, put anybody behind center, and it's going to be an upgrade over Desmond Ridder, whether that's Justin Fields, whether that's a rookie quarterback, whether they make a play at maybe a Ryan Tannehill, maybe a Kirk Cousins type. Regardless, I think a quarterback upgrade is coming, and he's still got all the factors why we were taking him at 101. Dynamic 3-down skill set, very, very tough runner, showing that he can punch it in the end zone. I know he graded out very well for you when you're doing your tail of the tape in that regard. He's just the do-it-all running back that we've seen in the NFL dominate in the past. Your Saquon Barkley, your Adrian Peterson, the guy that you can lean on to put the ball in their hands 20 to 25 times per game. I see that with Bijan Robinson. Now, it's funny that we're talking about this disappointing rookie season as if he still wasn't already an RB1. It's just based on the expectations. We thought he was going to be the RB1. So it's a little concerning that he had that. But regardless, I blame it on Arthur Smith. I think the offense is going to be fine. I think Bijan's got the skill set. And with a solid offensive line in front of him, I think he's got a top 3 overall ceiling in fantasy going into next season.
Yeah, and there is positives to take away from his season. Like you just said,
Oh, yeah.
68% snap share in the backfield, and with Arthur Smith there. He had 17% of his team's targets, which is really impressive. You don't usually see running backs command that level of a target share. And if you remove the game where he had a headache and the other game where he was completely phased out of the game plan, we're talking about a guy who was averaging 16 PPR points per game, which is like mid RB1 type of numbers. That's like kind of what like Joe Mixon has been averaging the last couple of years. So with Bijan Robinson, not a 20 plus point per game season, not a legendary upside season like we saw, but we know inherently year 1 to year 2 is usually when running backs take a big jump. Arthur Smith not being there would be a huge debt of gratitude from fantasy players, because we don't want to see him again. And it's possible, especially if the Falcons lose this week, that Bijan will be freed of Arthur Smith. So He's still the RB1 in my rankings,
Same.
but I would hear arguments for Jahmyr Gibbs, who is going to be the guy that I go with here at 104. And with both of these guys, again, Jahmyr Gibbs, from a redraft perspective, might even be ranked higher than Bijan Robinson for me next year. And in fact, if I had to rank them in redraft right now, gun to my head, I would rank Jahmyr Gibbs higher because same principles apply for him. Only he was more effective on his touches. He was very efficient. And again, similar to like the Bryce Young versus CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson situation, Jahmyr Gibbs went to a better team. He went to a better offense. He went to a team that is third in the NFC and wins right now. They're going to make the playoffs. They have a really productive roster and a really good chance at actually winning some playoff games and stuff. So with Jahmyr Gibbs, yeah, I think you could make the argument he's the RB1 in Dynasty because he's 21 years old. He just had an RB1 season, a season where he was competing for touches with a perennial solid running back like David Montgomery, and he finished with the RB8 in points per game, 16.79 PPR points per game, despite having shared the backfield for the first couple of weeks of the season. He was basically like a top 5 running back once he took over the backfield. So with both of these guys, like you said, I have them ranked very similarly. I have Bijan Robinson at 15 overall, and I have Jahmyr Gibbs at 18 overall. Both of these guys represent along with Breece Hall, represent something at the running back position that there just simply isn't a lot of. Young running backs with 3 to 4, 5 years of team control that are stud talents. And that's why I have these guys ranked over our wide receiver 1 from this class, because I think they represent something that is so hard to find at their position. As good as, Puka Nacua and Jordan Addison and some of the wide receivers from this class have been, they are a dime a dozen in the dynasty landscape. There is not 14 or 18 Bijan Robinsons at the running back position. There is one. And there's not 14 to 18 Jahmyr Gibbs at the running back position. There is one. And same goes for Breece Hall, who wasn't a rookie, but as a second-year player. These young running backs that have projectable RB1 workloads for the next 3 to 4 years, there's just simply not a lot of them in the fantasy landscape right now.
Yeah, and if you're saying, oh, I'm just going to get that from the 2024 draft class, you might want to do some research on the 2024 draft class, considering that I'd be shocked if multiple running backs saw their name called within the top 50 of the draft. But with Jahmyr Gibbs, you kind of mentioned 16.7 PPR points per game on the year, RB8 overall. When you isolate that for week 7 on, so obviously he had, a struggling start in his first 4 games, missed a few games after that due to injury. Once he came back in week 7 against the Baltimore Ravens, we were really able to see Jahmyr Gibbs, the type of talent that we had on display, what we were talking about in rookie draft. 62% of the snaps, only 47% of the rushing attempts, only 62% of the routes. And yet he was averaging 19.6 PPR points per game. Now, when we project forward and we're assuming, okay, second-year player, going to get more than 62% of the snaps, going to get more than 47% of the rushing attempts, going to get more than 62% of the routes, considering how dynamic of a player he is. If you up those totals by like 10%, you're looking at potentially a league-winning level running back, a 22, 23 PPR point per game running back, attached to one of the best offenses in the league, behind one of the best offensive lines in the league. I'm all over Jahmyr Gibbs. And honestly, like I kind of mentioned, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities. You can consider him at the 103.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. You could even maybe make the argument that him and Bijan, because they're so rare at their position, that they might even be at 102 potentially from this rookie class. So, I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs, like you said, 6 of his 10 games after week 7, he was a top 4 running back on the week. He had 25 PPR points per game in 6 of 10 games once he took over we're talking about a dude that was like just a best ball dynamo, a guy that you just got the spike weeks out of. Yeah, he had some down games, but for the most part, he was just absolutely lethal down the stretch. So definitely the type of dude that you wanted to draft when you got him at, 104, 105, 106, like you did in your rookie drafts. I'm going to throw it to you at 105. Are you going to grab another quarterback? Are you going to grab wide receiver 1? What are you thinking here?
Yeah, I'm going with a guy that wasn't even selected in the first 2 rounds, possibly even the first 3 rounds of a lot of your guys' rookie drafts. He's going to be buried on that list because, Corey, we're talking about Puka Nacua, the wide receiver 1 of the LA Rams. And this just kind of shows you how random this season has been. We're talking about, a 5th round overall draft pick in the NFL draft, having arguably the best rookie wide receiver season of all time. Over 100 receptions, pacing for over 1,500 receiving yards, 5 receiving touchdowns, 154 targets in his 16 games played. And that's including time that Matthew Stafford missed this season. When Puka Nacua was on the field with Matthew Stafford, this was legitimately one of the top 8 or so, maybe top 5 to 8 wide receivers in the NFL, man. And for a 22-year-old rookie that had some injury concerns in college, that fell to day 3 of the draft, to come in on day 1, to dominate in training camp, And not only to take that training camp hype, because we hear a lot of players get hyped in training camp. Oh, this guy made a one-handed snag. Oh, Jason Brownlee made a huge play in the preseason. A lot of that sounds like fluff. But the thing with Puka Nacua is what we thought was fluff ended up being, like I said, one of the top 3 or so rookie seasons of all time. I think the only rookie seasons you can put in the same breath as Puka Nacua's are Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. And obviously they're valued as top 3 overall wide receiver assets.
Yeah, and maybe Beckham as well in recent years. But yeah, wide receiver 5 finish, 18 PPR points per game, like you said, with Cooper Kupp on the field for half the season and Matthew Stafford dealing with some injuries here and there. So yeah, Puka Nacua, I have zero argument putting him this high. We can basically just move off of him because if you guys don't value him as a top 8 wide receiver in Dynasty, you should be. That's basically where you're at with Puka Nacua. Do I think he is more volatile because he might not be the talent that, say, some of these other wide receivers where you're ranking him around like a Chris Olave or a Garrett Wilson are? Yeah, but his situation isn't going to change anytime soon. He still has Matthew Stafford. He still has Sean McVay. Hell, maybe even Cooper Kupp is going to move on pretty soon or retire pretty soon. Like, I'm not going to play the, like, what happens if the situation changes game with Puka Nacua because the reality is he went to the best situation he could have gone to. And this is similar to the situation we saw with Amon-Ra St. Brown after his rookie season. And everybody was doubting Amon-Ra as well because they were like, oh, well, he did it without DeAndre Swift and TJ Hawkinson. And it's like, no, when a rookie wide receiver puts up this type of production, your ears perk up. You need to pay attention.
Well, and I mean, adding to that, if you were to say in the Dynasty offseason, a rookie wide receiver from this class would have over 100 receptions, over 1,400 receiving yards, and 5 receiving touchdowns, and finish as the wide receiver 5 in PPR formats, everybody would have said, well, that's got to be a top 3 to 5 Dynasty wide receiver. And
everyone would have assumed it was JSN that did that too.
And if JSN did that, he'd probably be wide receiver 3.
One of the top guys.
Yeah, and if JSN did that, he would probably be the wide receiver 3 or 4 in Dynasty. So you got to keep consistent here. Puka Nacua went out and was one of the most dominant rookie wide receivers, like I said, we've ever seen in the NFL. I think the bare minimum you got to have him is at least top 10. I have him as a top 8 guy. He's my wide receiver 7 overall.
Yeah, he's my wide receiver 7 overall as well. I have him as my 21st overall player. This is a guy I would spend a top 2-round pick on in Superflex. So we're talking among 10 to 15 quarterbacks going ahead of him, as well as where I have him ranked. So yeah, absolutely agree on Puka Nacua. I'm going to roll with wide receiver 2 from this class in Jordan Addison, a guy that I was very high on coming in to the draft cycle. I wavered a little bit because, he didn't test that well at the combine. His reception perception scores were down a little bit, but you know what? He knows what to do in the NFL, and he got put, similar to Puka Nacua, in the perfect landing spot for him. Pass-heavy offense with, when he was healthy, an accurate quarterback like Kirk Cousins, and alongside a true number 1 wide receiver like Justin Jefferson, and of course, TJ Hawkinson as a very solid, productive tight end. Addison is the type of dude that has big play upside. He has the ability to make good on his mismatches because, of course, playing across from Justin Jefferson, you're going to get a lot of them, and he's the perfect complement. So, yeah, could Jordan Addison be the number 1 receiver for most NFL teams? Maybe not. He might not be the true number 1 alpha that, Chris Olave is or Garrett Wilson is or whatever, who are similar statured guys. But Jordan Addison is a damn good number 2. I have him as a top 15 to 20 Dynasty wide receiver. He's my 34th overall player. Again, depending on quarterback value and all that kind of stuff, you could maybe argue him a little bit lower than that. But I'm high on Jordan Addison because unlike Puka Nacua, he was a first-round pick. He was the type of prospect that we should have expected to have a great rookie season, and he came out and scored, a number of touchdowns, big plays, commanded targets, everything that you want to see from a young wide receiver. So with Jordan Addison, I feel pretty comfortable saying that if we redrafted the class, he would be a top 6 to 7 pick for me.
Yeah, I have him a little bit lower simply because this class is so deep. Like, for reference, Jordan Addison is ranked as my 44th overall player, and he's the 11th ranked rookie I have. That's how many guys I think you can make the case for in this range. The 106 to 111 range really is close for me. That's why I was kind of a little bit shocked because I'm like, okay, it makes sense. But the guy that I have next is the guy that I think probably is the most volatile on this list because he could either potentially be up there with the Bijan and the Gibbs, or potentially, maybe the guy in front of him gets the role next year. Maybe he falls a little bit. But I got to trust the talent. I got to trust the efficiency of Devon Achane / Devon Achane, whatever you guys go by in the comment section. But regardless, I understand this is not sustainable. But this guy, in the games he was healthy, averaged 8 yards per carry. Now, regardless, he's not going to average 8 yards per carry next year, but can he average 5.5 on one of the best offenses in the league? Absolutely. This was a player, despite sharing the backfield with a running back who led the NFL in rushing touchdowns, averaged nearly 18 PPR points per game as a rookie. I understand the injury concern that he had this year. People might be concerned about his size, but regardless, he landed in the perfect scheme for his capabilities. He's a running back that's shown he can contribute in all factors between the tackles. He can contribute in the passing game. Obviously, one of the most efficient players in the league. And I trust Mike McDaniel to be able to get the best out of his skill set moving forward. It's still remarkable to me that both of these running backs in this backfield were legitimate mid to high end running back ones when they were healthy.
Yeah, I think one thing that we should definitely point your attention to is take a look at the players that have been taken so far. Stroud, Richardson, Gibbs, Puka Nacua, Jordan Addison, Devon Achane. What do they all have in common? They went to ideal fits to what they do well. Doesn't necessarily mean they went to the best offense in the league. They weren't all drafted by Kansas City Chiefs and, Justin Herbert and all these guys. They went to, like, Puka Nacua was drafted to a team that needed a Robert Woods replacement. That's exactly his skill set. He fits right in. Devon Achane goes to a one cut and go zone running scheme where he can get downhill and get, fast, which is what he does well. Jordan Addison, play in the slot as a Z receiver opposite a true number one. Fits are so important. And, one thing that we really need to take into account next year with rookie drafts is fit, not necessarily good quarterback, good coaching staff, good, team. Necessarily, what is the role they're going to be asked to do, and do they fit that role well? Because all of these guys, minus Bijan Robinson, but even Bijan to a degree too, because they've used him a lot as a receiver, and he does that very well. And I still think Arthur Smith, had he just given the workload to Bijan, would have had a monster season. But regardless, all of these guys were ideal fits for the situation. So I have nothing really to add on Achane. I do have him lower, mainly just due to the fact that I think the wide receiver value that we have that I'm going to talk about here, plus the tight end value that we have, and one of the quarterbacks still belong ahead of Achane for me, just because I view the running back position as it's Bijan, Jahmyr Gibbs, Breece Hall, and then if you're competing, Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, and then there needs to be a decent gap between the rest of the running backs where wide receivers and quarterbacks and tight ends file in. That's just that's why I have Achane a little bit lower.
That's fair. I honestly think that we're already taking the discount with Achane, because I do think if he stayed healthy, you could be making the case with him, with Bijan, with Gibbs, given how efficient he was this year. Fun fact. So overall, talking about like total games played of the Miami Dolphins backfield, Achane played 10 games, Raheem Mostert played 15 games this year. So 25 total games played. They had 31 running back touchdowns. 31 running back touchdowns, 21 from Mostert in his 15 games, 10 from Devon Achane in his 10 games. I honestly think like people view Miami as like, oh, this all-out passing attack. You got Tyreek, you got Jalen Waddle, you got Tua slinging the ball, you got Mike McDaniel's scheme. I honestly think it's a better impact for this running game. Like we've seen the Shanahan system really take effect on this team with Devon Achane, with Raheem Mostert. And it's funny because it's like you think of a backfield and you want to have that thunder and lightning. Like you would think a Jeff Wilson would be mixed in, but it's really just lightning and lightning. And that's funny because the guy ahead of him, Raheem Mostert, is a 32-year-old running back. When are the wheels going to fall off? And when they do, is it going to be Devon Achane's 20 touch per game workload? He could legitimately be the RB1 overall.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to make the next pick here just because I don't want to go too long on this video.
Sure.
Again, I did say we're doing this from a tight end premium standpoint. I'm taking the tight end one in Dynasty. Who is the guy I have ranked here is Sam Laporta. So Sam Laporta for me, I mean, he's my 35th overall player in tight end premium, half tight end premium formats. So he
38.
does have quite a bit of value because unlike last year, when I think the tight end position was like the outlook, at least, was Kyle Pitts and then a bunch of veteran guys, we have a lot better young established tight ends now with Sam Laporta coming on, with Dalton Kincaid having a decent rookie season, with Trey McBride's breakout, with, you still have those veteran guys, Mark Andrews, George Kittle, Travis Kelce, whatever. The tight end landscape is better, but Sam Laporta represents a guy that broke a number of records this year, is attached, again, similar theme here, to one of the better fits that he could have gone to, which is play the TJ Hawkinson role. We saw what TJ Hawkinson was like in Detroit. Only the difference is that Sam Laporta is a better athlete than TJ Hawkinson. He's more, used in space with Dan Campbell's scheme. And of course, Dan Campbell played tight end in the NFL, so he kind of knew how to use something like that. So Sam Laporta, yeah, he's a top 40 player in Dynasty startups. He's the type of dude that you can build your tight end core around. He's a set it and forget it dude for the next probably 5 to 10 years, because we haven't gotten a young tight end perform this well in their rookie season. Like maybe ever, like potentially ever. Like we're talking Mike Ditka 1961 rookie season.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at the totality of his year, 113 targets commanded as a rookie tight end. You usually see these guys, like if they command over 50 targets, they're like, oh, year two, we're going to see it. Like Trey McBride, who people consider potentially as a tight end two in Dynasty, did nothing in his rookie season. So we got to take into effect Sam Laporta having 113 targets, over 80 receptions, 860 yards, and nearly double-digit targets as a rookie, playing next to a guy like Amon St. Brown. Yeah, like maybe you make the argument once Brock Bowers come, he's like close to him, but I think at this point, Sam Laporta has to be viewed as the clear tight end one in Dynasty. So love that pick. He would have been my pick as well. I'm going to go on to the 109, and a guy that we might disagree on. I got Rashee Rice here, and it feels weird saying this, knowing how I thought about him as a prospect coming in from SMU, a guy that we've made jokes in the past about how, he can't separate, he can't do this, he can't do that. Well, guess what? He lands with Patrick Mahomes. You don't really need to separate much once you got the best quarterback in football slinging you the rock. The reason why I'm just so impressed with what Rashee Rice has done this year is that despite having, for the most part this year, limited snaps, a bunch of games under 60% of the snaps, you're looking at a rookie wide receiver that vaulted himself to the number one wide receiver for Patrick Mahomes, commanded over 100 targets, and is on pace for over 1,000 receiving yards as a 23-year-old player. Projecting forward, you still have Patrick Mahomes in town. You still have Andy Reid in town. Travis Kelce has shown evident decline this year. I'm not even sure if he's going to be on the football field next year. He may very well retire this offseason. If that were to be the case, you got to think about this. Attached to Patrick Mahomes showing this level of upside so early in his NFL career, I got to give him his flowers, man. And speaking of flowers, like, you can consider him in this spot. You can consider another couple young wide receivers like Tank Dell in this spot. But I love the insulation that I have to the best quarterback on the planet, hence why I'm going with Rashee Rice.
Yeah, and you said we might disagree on it. Nope, I have him at the next player too. I would have picked him as well. So, yeah, Rashee Rice. I like Rashee Rice as a prospect? No, I didn't. Again, another L that I'm going to eat here. I don't think he was a very good prospect, separator. But he clearly learned some stuff once he got to Kansas City. And, maybe he was dealing with his injuries at his final year at SMU. Like, sometimes you just don't know, right? Like, sometimes when a player can't separate in college, you're like, oh, he just can't separate. But you got to look in totality of their entire college career. And I actually went back like about mid-season later on in the season and realized that he actually was a decent separator in his other years at SMU. So he must have been dealing with something his final year. And it's pretty evident now that he's a good wide receiver prospect. And he's, big enough. He's, athletic enough. He's physical enough. I kind of view him as like the new T. Higgins, because part of me thinks that the Kansas City Chiefs will go and add their Jamar Chase to this offense, like whatever that ends up being, whether they trade up in the draft, whether they go sign a Brandon Ayuk or something like that. I think that Rashee Rice will be a second fiddle to somebody, but he's a damn good second fiddle. And that's exactly what T. Higgins represents. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's the number one receiver for Patrick Mahomes long-term, and I'm even too low on him right now. But I have him right now in my rankings as the 40th overall player. So I'm very, very high on him in startups. I think you should be aggressive when targeting Rashee Rice in startups, especially because some people might not be ready. Like, if you're doing a startup right now, like, he might go in the 6th, 7th round. And I think that's way too low.
Yeah. For the record, he's my 39th overall player. So we're like same type of vibe there. Same type of where we have him. So.
Yeah. And you mentioned Tank Dell. That's the direction I'm going in.
One spot behind him.
We have to be consistent, right? I'm going to keep saying this. We have to be consistent. If Tank Dell, his rookie season, was had by JSN. JSN is the third wide receiver ranked in Dynasty right now. So as much as JSN's prospect profile still factors in, and he's still a good player, and I believe in him long term to some degree, like Tank Dell, what he did in his rookie season so far, attached to CJ Stroud long term. Could you argue if he's the number one with Nico Collins there? Sure. But regardless, Tank Dell's rookie season was madly impressive. Very, very impressive. A lot of big games, a lot of spike performances, and Tank Dell needs to be higher than JSN as far as rookie wide receivers go in the future. And I have him, I mentioned Rashee Rice at 40. Tank Dell is at 41. Like, they're right neck and neck with each other. And there's a massive little tier here of these wide receivers.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm glad you put Tank Dell here as well, because this is a guy that when I do my contextualized game logs this offseason, is going to be the guys that pops out, because in games that he had over 70% of the snaps this year, you're talking about the game log, 20.2 PPR points, 25.5 PPR points, down performance 3.9, whatever, down performance 6.1. And then you have a 4-game stretch prior to him getting hurt against the Broncos, where he put up 29.6, 18.9, 28.9, 17.2 PPR points. Like you said, if JSN had a stretch like that, where he looked like one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, keep in mind, there's multiple games in there where he had 13% of the snaps, 36% of the snaps, 48% of the snaps. And he still finished with 70 yards per game, and 7 touchdowns in 11 games played. It's really just remarkable. We were talking about this guy. Oh, he's this stick figure. He's only 160 pounds. You know, CJ Stroud's overrated and Tank Dell's this little caricature. Like, what are they going to do on the NFL field? Well, they created magic on an NFL field. And I honestly think that Tank Dell going even into redraft might be the biggest value in fantasy football, period. I think there's going to be a guy that people might say, oh, you know, he's an upside 3-4 turn type of player. You can make the case that he's a 2-3 turn type of pick. And in fact, in our 2024 way too early mock, we picked him in the second round because I think that's where he should be going.
Yeah, absolutely. If you mentioned kind of some of the context that you need to glean from his season. If you remove week 1, he played less than 50% of the reps. And you remove week 13, he got injured early in that game. Weeks 2 to 12, Tank Dell averaged 17.67 PPR points per game as a rookie wide receiver. That is almost identical to what Puka Nacua did. So we're talking about these guys basically in the same breath when you remove some of the context from the Tank Dell situation there. So yeah, he's attached to a great young quarterback who's a very good passer, have a very good coaching staff. Nothing's really changing here. So with Tank Dell, yeah, he absolutely belongs to be a highly valued dynasty asset. I don't know if we're going to see another rookie class do what this one has done when it comes to 3rd and 4th round rookie picks being this dominant. This is probably going to be an outlier year. So if anybody is watching content this offseason and you hear, this is the next Tank Dell, this is the next Puka Nacua, there's a good chance that we're not going to see this again.
No, I would be shocked if we see this again. I mean, this amount of talent, we're talking about the 110, a player in his rookie season who averaged 70 yards per game and 7 touchdowns in 11 games. You don't see that, man. We're talking about the 110 right now. The Dynasty tight end 1 is the freaking 108 in this redraft, man. Like, this class is absolutely loaded, and it continues at this next pick because we haven't even looked at the guy that went first overall in the NFL draft yet. I understand the pessimism with Bryce Young. The situation obviously didn't work out this year. We are valuing him ahead of CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson. We're just going to take the L right now because obviously, like we see in this redraft, those guys go 1-2. Bryce Young goes at the 111. But I'm still not willing to count out the prospect that I saw from Alabama, the guy who won the Heisman Trophy, the guy who went first overall in the NFL draft. I'm not letting arguably one of the worst situations in NFL history. And yes, I'm rivaling that to the Urban Meyer, Trevor Lawrence, Jacksonville Jaguars. I think the Carolina Panthers this year, when Adam Thielen and DJ Chark are getting significant snaps in your wide receiver core in the year 2023, that's a problem. When your offensive line is failing to block on a consistent basis like the Panthers were, that's a problem. When Chuba Hubbard and an overpaid Miles Sanders are your 2 running backs to try to lean on as a rookie quarterback, that's a problem. This is by far one of the worst situations I've ever seen. I still believe in the talent, and I understand if you want to avoid Bryce Young because you're worried about the volatility, the Zach Wilson factor, sure. But at the same time, Justin Fields was going in the 3rd round after his rookie season. Trevor Lawrence was going in the 3rd round of his rookie season. Bryce Young might be in the 4th round, maybe in the early 5th round of a lot of your startups, maybe even later in a lot of your startups. And we've seen the level of ascension that those 2 quarterbacks saw. Justin Fields, we don't even know if he's going to be an NFL starter 2 years, 3 years from now. And yet after his second season, he was going at the 1-2 turn in Dynasty. And obviously we know what Trevor Lawrence has developed into. I rest my case. I think the value for Bryce Young right now to potentially still end up being a top 15 overall asset in Dynasty is still live.
Yeah, and you've seen glimpses of him do what he did at Alabama. It's not like this guy's been a complete train wreck and we're just blaming the situation, because there has been moments, there's been games, there's been drives, there's been quarters of games where you're like, this dude looks like the first overall pick still, but he's out there trying to 1v9. It looks like David Carr with the Houston Texans out there where he's getting sacked. He can't find anybody with the separation to get the ball to. Like, it's bad. And it could take another year, another 2 years for them to fix that situation. But my comp for this Bryce Young situation is by year 3, maybe it's a Tua Tagovailoa situation. The Carolina Panthers need to be aggressive this offseason. They need to go out and trade for T. Higgins if he's franchise tagged or something like that. They need to get some real talent around this dude because they mortgage their future for him. So he needs to be the focal point. You need to make sure that Bryce Young looks good in his second season. Even if you only win 6 or 7 games, it's better than this guy being a bust and having to start over.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I mean, and a lot of other rookie draft cycles, you probably consider this guy higher. But at this point, I think the 110, 112 range has to be where he finds his name.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually had him ranked at the 112. There's 2 players that I would still take ahead of Bryce Young as it currently stands. One of which was going very high in rookie drafts before, and that's Jackson Smith and Jigba. I'm taking JSN here. Again, the challenging thing with evaluating JSN is, did he have a bad rookie season? No. Did he have a great rookie season? No. But is there many other wide receivers in this class that had better rookie seasons than him?
Yes.
Absolutely. And that matters way more than prospect profiles at this point in time. But JSN was a great prospect. He did show flashes. He did have a number of games where, he won that Philadelphia Eagles game for the Seahawks. Like there's a lot of good that you can point to with JSN, but I also don't think there's enough good to put him over Tank Dell, to put him over Rashee Rice, to put him over Jordan Addison, to put him over Puka Nacua. So this is where he finds himself. I think generally speaking, what I say he's a buy, a sell, whatever, I would say he's a hold. I'm not buying low on JSN unless he's going for less than a dynasty wide receiver 20-ish price tag. And I'm not buying low on JSN thinking that he's going to become a top 10 dynasty wide receiver either, because I think he's semi-volatile, but I do think prospect profile plus his rookie season so far kind of equals a net neutral, where it's like, okay, we'll see what happens in year 2.
Slight net, I would say slight net negative, because I think a lot of people viewed him as potentially a top 10 guys based on his prospect profile. Again, we never got there, but we kind of saw.
He was at 15 for me before the year,
Yeah.
and he would be at 15 still, but some of these other guys had climbed above him. So he's more at like the 20 range for me.
Yeah, no, I'm on the same page. Where do you have him currently in your overall rankings?
He is my 42nd overall player. So again, I have Rashee Rice 40, Tank Dell 41, JSN 42. He's right behind them.
He's at 45 for me, so right close there. Speaking of a guy that I have ranked at 47, relatively close to him, attached to arguably, well, not even arguably, betting-wise, the clear MVP favorite at this point. I think this is where Zay Flowers kind of has to see his name called. Obviously, a very volatile season is the best way to describe it for Zay Flowers. At some points, he looked like one of the most dominant young wide receivers we've seen, and at some points, he's being used as a gadget player. But regardless, on the totality of the year, 108 targets on the season, 77 receptions, 858 yards, and 5 receiving touchdowns. Obviously, with Zay Flowers, we've seen the dynamic skill set coming out of college. They take him in the first round. It's kind of what I expected as his rookie season. I would say, like you mentioned with JSN, it's probably a net neutral for what I expected for Zay Flowers coming into the year. But what I love to see is the downfield usage in recent weeks. We were able to see, for example, against Miami, that big time touchdown, 3 catches, 106 yards. I want to see more of that. If he can develop more of that into his game, I think a Tyler Lockett type of player is what we could be looking towards. And Tyler Lockett, if you guys remember, in his prime, was a legitimate top 10 to 12 fantasy wide receiver each and every season. I see that in the range of outcomes for Zay Flowers, still attached to Lamar Jackson. Mark Andrews maybe starts the year slow next year with that injury that he's coming off of. I think Zay Flowers has the opportunity to really establish himself as that true wide receiver one, kind of split in tandem this year with Odell Beckham Jr. But I think moving forward, Zay Flowers, to me, is the clear wide receiver one of this team. And again, 201 for a guy that I have ranked in my top 50 just shows how absurd this class is.
Yeah, which is, again, hilarious that we were talking about how bad the class was, during rookie draft season. And Zay Flowers was not one of those guys. Like, he was one of the dudes I was very comfortable with in rookie draft season, but he probably fell to a lot of you because nobody wanted a Baltimore Ravens wide receiver. There was narrative around that. And we said this offense was going to change with Todd Monken. That's exactly what happened. So 13 PPR points per game. I wouldn't call his season a net neutral. I think he definitely had a lot of positive, and I think Matt Harmon and I talked about this as well. He has him ranked as his dynasty wide receiver one from this class, just from a talent perspective. And I know Harmon is more so, on the side of like good route runners and that kind of thing. But I mean, that speaks volumes at least to the fact that he's like wide receiver 6 or 7 off the board right now. Like the depth of this class has been pretty solid. I'm actually going to move on so we can rattle through the second round really quickly here. Where do you think I'm going to go with this?
I think you're going Jaden Reed.
I am not going Jaden Reed. I am going to take the quarterback. I'm going to take Will Levis because we've seen flashes from him. I think we've seen enough from Will Levis to say that he will be the starter in Tennessee at the very least next year. And they're going to have to do some stuff around him. They got an old, aging DeAndre Hopkins. Treylon Burks is probably a bust or at least close to it. Derrick Henry's probably gone this offseason. Tajay Spears is interesting. They're going to have to build this offense around Will Levis next offseason. But I will say I've seen enough good out of Will Levis. I've seen him run. I've seen him be physical. I've seen him be tough. Everything that he really showed at Kentucky has shown up, and I've been relatively impressed. I would say he's been a bit of a net positive from what I expected from him coming into his rookie season to what he's actually been. I didn't think he was going to get on the field very much at all, and I also didn't think when he got on the field he was going to look very good. And he's had games like that Dolphins game on the Monday night where he's like legit looked like a franchise quarterback in some of those games. So I will take Will Levis here at 202. Again, you said Zay Flowers ranked inside your top 50. I have Will Levis at 50. So he's literally at 50 in my rankings. Again, at the 202 in this redraft.
Yeah, so I have Will Levis like in the 60 range for me as well. I think there's actually one other guy that we haven't mentioned that I have in that relative same range as well. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think he's going to be a starting quarterback. I think he's shown enough flashes to have that level of upside we want from a young quarterback prospect. So 16th, this was a guy we were taking at the 1-2 turn, pretty much a net neutral, especially considering how these young wide receivers really performed this year. I think his status quo is relatively similar to what we expected coming in. Like I said, Jaden Reed is actually going to be my next pick. And it's really remarkable what he was able to do week 7 on, because early in the season, rookie wide receiver, 3rd-round pick, he had a couple flashes, but never really got that consistent type of volume that we were typically expecting. That bye week hits. And like we've always said throughout throughout our history of the channel, realistically, is the post-bye rookie bump coined by Hayden Winks is typically when we see these young players develop into their roles on the offense. And despite playing limited amount of routes, we're only talking 60% of the routes week 7 on, he averaged 15.4 PPR points per game. 60% of the routes, 15.4 PPR points per game. I just mentioned with Rashee Rice just a couple picks ago about when he saw those snaps increase, he was developing into a true top 15 overall, top 12 overall fantasy wide receiver. You can make the same case for Jaden Reed. Only 60% of the snaps, yet we expect that to increase moving forward. You're attached to a 24-year-old quarterback that just came off a 30-touchdown year. I'm really excited, man. If he develops into a full-time player, not only do I think he can be the wide receiver one of the Packers, I think he's got a legitimate top 15 overall ceiling. If we see him go in the upwards of the 85%, 90% route participation, he was already averaging 15.4 PPR points per game. He's already a really good separator. He's already really good with the ball in his hands. I mean, if you started him in week 17, he probably won you a championship.
Yeah, it's crazy. Again, you could make the argument he's too low right now. I think people will in the comments section. He could probably go as high as 111 above Bryce Young, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Zay Flowers, and Will Levis. Like, I think that's probably the highest you could argue him. But yeah, I mean, and for what it's worth, like, I have Jaden Reed at 59. All of the guys that we've talked about really since Rashee Rice have been between 40 and 60. So these guys are all relatively similar, and you could put Jaden Reed kind of in any which order. But again, this speaks to the depth of this class and how good it's been.
And real quick with Jaden Reed, he's my wide receiver 26 in Dynasty, which is a really high mark. And we're talking about the 203 right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty crazy at like this. If this doesn't prove to you guys that rookie picks are very important, and yeah, there was misses and that kind of thing, like, I don't know what will, because these guys have all raised in value significantly and they're cornerstone assets for you. Speaking of cornerstone asset, probably one of the more underrated guys from this draft class in what he's done so far is Josh Downs, who's been an awesome separator so far this year. He's had his moments. He hasn't been as productive as, say, Jaden Reed or Rashee Rice or Tank Dell. But the flashes have been there, and the like play in, play out consistency has been there. And I think knowing that I believe in Shane Steichen, like I talked about with Anthony Richardson, I believe in this offense. I really love what I've seen from Josh Downs, and both Josh Downs and Jaden Reed were good separators coming out of college. Matt Harmon loved both of them. I loved both of them on film. And I thought they were like Jahan Dotson, Elijah Moore, Tyler Lockett clones. I thought they were all just going to be really good slot receivers in the NFL, and that can be really good in PPR leagues. And for whatever reason, I mean, Josh Downs had his starting quarterback get injured. Jaden Reed had a guy take a big step forward with Jordan Love. So yeah, you have to rank him behind Jaden Reed, but at the same time, these guys are virtually the same type of player.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I have Josh Downs well within this mix as well. He is my 205. So there's still one guy that we haven't listed here that I have a little bit higher. And based on how he ended the season, people might be a little bit shocked with this because, he was relatively useless down the stretch, aside from a really nice week 17 performance. I still got to take Dalton Kincaid here, 1st round rookie tight end. Obviously, we talk about the fact that, aside from Sam Laporta, rookie tight ends typically don't break out in year 1. And yet we still saw Dalton Kincaid, maybe disappointing because of how we saw Sam Laporta really develop into that guy right away. But Dalton Kincaid still had a solid rookie season, tight end 13 overall, 83 targets in 15 games, 66 catches, 589 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And you're still tethered to, in my opinion, the 2nd or 3rd best quarterback in the NFL with Josh Allen. Dalton Kincaid, we expect those snaps to go up, assuming Dawson Knox is not brought up in the long term. They invested a 1st round overall pick into him. And I really think that year 2, we could see that fully manifest. This is a team with the Buffalo Bills that, outside of Stephon Diggs, really struggles for receiving weapons. And I honestly think that Dalton Kincaid, from a pure talent standpoint, is their second best pass catcher on their team. I think going into 2024, building some more rapport with Josh Allen, full offseason, not having to worry about, the rookie cycle, the NFL combine, a lot of the factors that happen for a lot of these rookie tight ends. I think we could truly see a breakout in year two, like a Trey McBride. I think Dalton Kincaid is capable of that.
Yeah, for sure. And 13.57 PPR points per game from week 7 when he started getting full-time allotment of snaps to week 14, which was before Dawson Knox came back from injury. So yeah, a guy that was legitimately producing, and again, in a position that we never see players produce at. So he would have been my next pick for sure. This next pick for me comes down to a couple different guys. I'm actually going to keep up the tight end train going with the guy that was actually the tight end 1 for me coming into the class, which is Michael Mayer. Again, very similar situation to when you compare Michael Mayer to like Sam Laporta and Dalton Kincaid and some of these other dudes, not a very good landing spot, right? Quarterback is benched, Jimmy Garoppolo, whatever. Josh McDaniels is fired midseason. Like, it's not a good landing spot for Michael Mayer. But what I've seen from him in flashes is when he's been on the field, he's kind of been able to command some targets in there. And I really did love the prospect. And again, with tight ends, you got to be a little bit more patient than you are with wide receivers. You want to see them flash in their rookie seasons and then kind of take it to the next step in their, sophomore seasons or whatever. 15% targets per route run doesn't really stand out to you as elite productive tight end, but he did have some good weeks, including week 15 when we last saw him on the field right before he got injured and hasn't been back since. He was the tight end 8 on the week. He had a couple other top 10 performances throughout the year. So Michael Mayer, a bit of a projection, but I do still believe in him long-term. So I have him going off the board here at 2.6. And if you guys couldn't tell already, like after Jaden Reed went off the board, there's a pretty significant tier drop off. And maybe you group Kincaid in with that. But for the most part, these guys are more so like, 70s to like 120th overall startup pick guys. They're not like top 50 dudes like we talked about already.
Yeah, like for reference, so Josh Downs my 75. He's my 17th overall player. I got the next guy I'm about to pick as my 91st overall player, Michael Mayer, 92. Zach, I don't want to spoil that, but another player at 93. And then filing out to the top 24, it ends at 130. So we're not talking about top 70 overall assets at this point. We're talking more so, once you get to the high end of the single digit rounds, to the low end of the double digit rounds in your startup drafts, these are typically the guys we'll see off the board. And I kind of spoiled it a little bit, but the next guy I will be taking is another rookie running back who showed flashes, showed the efficiency we want to see, and may or may not be a teammate of the quarterback that you took in the second round. I got to go with Tajay Spears of the Tennessee Titans. Obviously, the play here is Derrick Henry, aging asset, not going to be back on the Titans next year. And I think Tajay Spears showed enough to be considered the lead back for the Titans moving forward. Very efficient on the ground, 4.41 yards per carry on that team, despite inconsistencies on the offensive line. Heck, he was more efficient as a runner than what Derrick Henry was this year. 7.02 yards per reception, 49 receptions, 67 targets commanded in his 16 games as a rookie. This is really just a play on the fact that maybe this is like the next Tony Pollard, because down the stretch, you're able to see week 13 on, his target totals were monstrous. 6 targets, 4 receptions, 13 yards in week 13, 8, 6, 89 in week 14, only 1 in week 15, but then he finalized it in week 16 and 17 with 6 targets in each of those last 2 games. I love seeing rookie running backs that show these flashes of efficiency, that show these flashes of pass game utilization. And I really think if Derrick Henry is not coming back to the Titans, this guy might even be a riser. I think we could even be talking about this guy going in the mid rounds of redraft leagues. If he's slated to get the RB1 role for the Tennessee Titans, showing the efficiency he showed last year, potential offensive improvements, maybe they had a receiver, maybe they had an offensive lineman in the NFL draft, I'm cautiously optimistic of Tajay Spears. I think this is not the last we've seen from him. I think he could very well work his way into that first round range if he gets the workload I expect him to.
Yeah, I mean, calling him the RB4 from this class is a little bold. I think I do have Charbonnet ahead of him, and also Roschon Johnson as well. So I'll just take Charbonnet off the board right now because he is my next ranked player. But yeah, Tajay Spears, I mean, I don't want to just be like, oh, Derrick Henry's old, Tajay's going to get the whole workload, because I think some people will do that. I think they'll just assume that it's going to happen, but they could add somebody. And it's not a great running back class, but it is, there's guys in free agency. There's going to be players still probably drafted in the top 100 overall picks in the draft. So I don't want to put the cart before the horse on Tajay, but investing in a talented player, which Spears clearly is usually never a bad idea. So I don't fault you for that one. Charbonnet splitting a backfield, obviously. So that's the challenging thing. Kenneth Walker is not going to be out of there for another 2 seasons, probably, if you're thinking of when does Charbonnet take over the backfield? But again, I'm just investing in a talented player. When he got opportunities this year, he was good with them. And this is an offense that I think is going to lean on the run long term. So I'm just going to roll with Charbonnet for that reason. But if you wanted to lower him because he doesn't really have like a clear path to touches yet, I think that's, not outrageous. But I'm going to put Charbonnet here at 208. Who do you got next? Let's try and close this one out in the next 3 to 5 minutes if we can.
Yeah, for sure. We went a little bit long in the second round for the most part, and the tail end of the first. Zach Charbonnet was my next highest rated player, my 21st ranked player. So I believe that's in accordance directly where we are in the draft. I got Demario Douglas of the New England Patriots, and it was really a weird season for Douglas. And I mean, the Patriots as a whole, obviously, this is a team that didn't really have big playoff aspirations, but really gave Demario Douglas, when he was healthy, the opportunity to shine. And we were able to see it on full display. In week 7 on, he truly developed into the wide receiver one for the Patriots. Now, whether you want to digest that or not, given the fact that their receiving core isn't great as a whole, sure. But Demario Douglas was commanding targets, and we love to see that as a rookie player. Week 7 on, once he really came on, he was able to get 81% of the routes when he was healthy, 24% target per route run, 23% target share as a rookie. 10 PPR points per game isn't the greatest, but again, this was an offense that wasn't scoring a lot of points, not a lot of touchdowns being thrown. Well, guess what? That's going to change this year if they have Jaden Daniels, if they have Drake May, if they have a Caleb Williams added to the quarterback core in the draft, or better yet, if they don't take a quarterback, you could even see a Kirk Cousins coming in. You can even see a veteran quarterback coming in. Regardless, no matter what direction they go at quarterback, I think it's going to be an upgrade for what Bailey Zappi and Mac Jones put on display this year. This is just a bet on a talented player. He was able to command targets right away. He kind of reminds me a little bit, like that smaller wide receiver that demands targets, that kind of Deontay Johnson mold, that separator on the outside. Like I said, that can command targets at a high rate. And I'm really excited to see, with the offense improving, just how much that benefits Demario Douglas.
Yeah, I would say Darnell Mooney, also the type of kind of rookie season that Darnell Mooney had, would also kind of be a good comparison to Demario Douglas. I would worry a little bit that if Bill Belichick is gone, he's no longer like a scheme fit for whatever the new coaching staff is. But that would be something that you would obviously evaluate at that point in time. I'm going to roll with Roschon Johnson here. I already talked about him. I've seen a talented player. That's one, box checked. Deontay Foreman, Khalil Herbert, both free agents. So we don't know exactly how this backfield is going to shake out. Maybe it's Roschon. Maybe they add somebody. Regardless, I saw a talented player with a clear path to touches next year. Whether it's Justin Fields as his quarterback, whether they add somebody in free agency, I don't exactly know. It wouldn't shock me, given all the cap space that the Bears have, if they signed a Saquon Barkley or a Josh Jacobs or something like that. But I just want to bet on a talented player here. So that's what I'm rolling with.
Yeah, no, I dig it. I think Roschon also is a really talented player. I like that a lot. Now, there's 2 guys here that are literally back to back for me. We'll mention the other guy in the honorable mentions. I'll go with the guy that I have ranked higher here with Dontavian Wicks of the Green Bay Packers. Very similar case to Jaden Reed when he got the opportunity to put his talent on display. Really showed that. The biggest question mark for a guy like Dontavian Wicks is really what that opportunity is on that Packers team. You got Romeo Doubs, you got Christian Watson, you got a young tight end, obviously Jaden Reed, like I already mentioned. But at this point in the draft, I just want to bet on a young, talented player, and I really think Wicks showed that down the stretch. 15.76 yards per reception, 10.2 yards per target. And we were able to see in flashes, a game where he had 6 catches for 97 yards despite only 78% of the snaps. When he was afforded the opportunity to play on this team, he was a good player. And I honestly thought he was an underrated player in the draft cycle. He lands at the Packers, scheme fit with Matt LaFleur. I'm really excited. And I think at this point, Jordan Love has shown me he's a quarterback. I want to attack weapons that he's surrounded by.
Yeah, absolutely. Big question, like you said, at how many routes is this guy even going to get? Because he might be the 4th receiver on that team in terms of route participation, but who knows? Maybe he's outplayed Romeo Doubs, and Romeo Doubs is now the 4th receiver on this offense. Because Jaden Reed is obviously a slot guy. Christian Watson, I would assume, is still a starting receiver for this team. But I mean, it's a good problem to have if you're Jordan Love. You got 4 receivers that can play, basically, and 2 tight ends that can play. So definitely a good situation to be in. Speaking of 2 tight ends that can play, I am going to take the best of the 2, which is Tucker Kraft. Luke Musgrave was the guy that was drafted higher. Tucker Kraft did more with his opportunity than Luke Musgrave did with his. That's the point blank period truth. I don't exactly know how this split is going to work out going forward, because Luke Musgrave was on IR for most of that time. But at the same time, Tucker Kraft, in the games that he started, 10 PPR points, 7, 10, 16, 10, 11. Like, he was a producer. And Luke Musgrave, he was getting the routes. He was getting some targets here and there, but he wasn't producing. And Tucker Kraft took the opportunity that Luke Musgrave had and produced with it. I thought he was a better prospect coming out of South Dakota State than Luke Musgrave was coming out of Oregon State. And it looks like that is the situation that has played out. It's kind of similar to the Mark Andrews, Hayden Hurst situation. Mark Andrews was drafted after Hayden Hurst, but he ended up being the better player. I think that's probably what we're talking about with Tucker Kraft.
Yeah, no, I love the pick as well. He was in this consideration range for me as well. I mentioned Dontavian Wicks was a guy I was really close to. There was two guys that I was considering, ended up going with Wicks. The other guy I want to mention here, real quick as an honorable mention, is Keaton Mitchell. Now, the reason I didn't put Keaton Mitchell here is, again, it's a very concerning process coming back from the multi-ligament tear. But when he was healthy, I mean, this was a guy that was legitimately putting up Devon A-chain level efficiency. Again, the risk here is that recovery from the injury. If we get more positive information from it, I think he has to find his way in this video, attached to that offense, attached to Lamar Jackson. But I really wanted to give a shout out to Keaton Mitchell because when he got the opportunity this year, he was a damn efficient running back.
Yeah, and I mean, we didn't even mention the 108 from this class that was drafted, and that was Quentin Johnston. And Quentin Johnston is definitely an honorable mention here. This is probably around the range that you would start to consider him. But dude, oh man, and another lesson I'm taking away from this rookie class, Treylon Burks, Quentin Johnston, these dudes that need development in the NFL, the dynasty landscape is just not patient. And even if Quentin Johnston is the next Nico Collins and year 3, year 4 of his career becomes a stud,
then you buy
there's no point of drafting these guys in your rookie draft because they need development and dynasty players are not patient. So why even draft them? If you like Quentin Johnston, you want to get some shares of him, the time to do that is now when he's cheap. You don't do it at the 108 and take him over Zay Flowers and take him over Devon A-Chan, take him over Will Levis, some of the guys that he was going around. So for me, in this year's class, if we get another Quentin Johnston, and we might have another one with Keon Coleman, I'm probably not going to just up and draft him blindly because he got taken high in the NFL draft. I'll fade him, see what happens his rookie season. Maybe it'll develop into like a face planner situation, or maybe it'll develop into a situation where he has a bit of a down value standpoint. The guys that you want to bet on, look at the receivers that hit in this class. Puka Nacua, Jordan Addison, Rashee Rice, Tank Dell, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Zay Flowers, Jaden Reed, Josh Downs. A lot of these guys are just dynamic, small receivers. Not a lot of them are, stud, alpha, could become a wide receiver one day in the NFL. Like the days of just scouting a wide receiver for their size and their traits, I mean, we know that we're not patient with it. So the whole point that I'm getting at here is pro-ready receivers in the NFL draft are probably the way to go.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. But either way, I mean, we went a little longer than we anticipated on this video. If you guys enjoyed, make sure you leave a like down below. Comment your biggest changes. Maybe you prefer a guy like, I don't know, Jaden Reed. You want to say, hey, I would take Jaden Reed over Zay Flowers. I would take Jaden Reed over Bryce Young. If you want to go wherever far you want to go in the comments, feel free to leave them down below. You want to take Puka Nacua as the 103 off the board, leave it down in the comment section. We are happy to engage with you guys. We love doing it. We love talking about Dynasty. I mean, we finally are able to look past season long and gearing towards the Dynasty offseason. In my opinion, the most exciting time as a fantasy football player.
Yeah, and you guys will notice we ate some crow on some of these players. Like, yeah, we were wrong. If you drafted a whole lot of, Josh Downs over Rashee Rice, didn't really work out too well for you. You still got a good player, but you didn't get the guy that became the more valuable player. 100%. So again, we're going to go back to the drawing board, learn from those mistakes, and hopefully apply them into the 2024 class. Let us know also down below, what did you come away with from your rookie draft? What was your haul? Did you get Sam Laporta, Jaden Reed, Rashee Rice, and Puka Nacua like some of you probably did? Definitely let us know about that in the comments. Again, just under an hour on this video. Didn't intend to go this long, but I think it was a good conversation. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you guys play Dynasty Fantasy Football. You're also going to want to keep it tapped in over on flockfantasy.com. We have our rookie rankings that we kind of went through here up to date from the 2023 class. 2024 rookie rankings are being added to the site right now. Dynasty trade calculator that is customizable to your specific league. Superflex, one quarterback rankings. All that stuff is available. Link will be down below for that in the pinned comment. But with that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.